Hello, Internet. All right. Thanks for joining me for another Wii game review. Today we're doing Manhunt 2. This came out in 2007. It's a Rockstar game. Yeah, and it's an M title on the Wii. So, a Nintendo console with an M title. There's actually quite a few M titles on the Wii, despite people thinking there are no M titles on Nintendos. Wahaha! M title. And this one's got all kinds of attention when it came back out way back in 2007. It made the national news. There was all sorts of people saying this game should not exist and blaming it for things. And, yeah, it was a fun time. So you know, yeah, gory, gross, disturbing game. What kind of game is it? It's a third-person view. It's a stealth game, sort of like Splinter Cell, I guess. Except, unlike Splinter Cell, this game is pretty fucked. And sorry about the language. I don't normally swear too much on these, but yeah, it's a messed up game. You are a mental patient. You have no memory. Are you mental? Are you not mental? Yeah, I don't know. The game unfolds, you uncover your character's history. I don't want to say more than that about the storyline, because you don't really go into it knowing much more than that, unless you've watched some spoilers or read about it. Yeah, so it really is every every chapter, I guess you could call it. It kind of unlocks a little bit of the story. Anyway, it's a good story. I swear to God. But let's get into it. So the graphics. So when I first turned the game on, I was a little disappointed with the textures during the first cutscene, and the textures don't actually really improve through the game at all. This just was a lack of detail, and clearly this is the Wii, so comparatively it's not going to be as good as the counterparts. But this wasn't released on the PlayStation. PlayStation 3. This was released for the PlayStation 2 and the Wii, and I think there was a PC version of this. Anyway, so the PC version probably looks a lot better. But yeah, so lack of detail, not a big deal. I got over it really quick. I thought it was going to affect the quality of the game because they were so low, but I was just being stupid. Once the game starts, those concerns get put right to the side. You don't care about it anymore. Now, although during some of the more quiet and mild moments, you may end up noticing it again, the lack of the detail. But thankfully, there's not really any boring moments. And when there is, there's still plenty of distractions that are very disturbing. So, it never really becomes it's a non-issue. The gameplay is solid, so the lower quality textures, not a big deal. Now, there's some pretty cool effects that also help distract you from, the graphics. In the first two sections of the game, there's what seems to be kind of like a static filtered over the whole screen. It's kind of an artistic license. It represents, at least to me, it represents your character's unstable and confused state of mind. I mean, you woke up, got no memory, you're hearing voices. Are you hearing voices? Is there someone really there? Yeah, it's weird. So there's things like that happen. So there's some artistic freedom that was taken with and I don't know if it was intentionally used to cover up or distract from the graphics, but it works, and it's neat. There's also some interesting censorship that really is disturbing. So yeah, it's an M title, but it's still censored. This game was an adult-only rating, and you can't have that rating if you want to be on the Nintendo or be on a PlayStation. So they censored it a little bit. So when you sneak up on an opponent, they don't know you're there, and you go to kill them. And these deaths are not like, oh, I stabbed the guy, or he's unconscious. That's sort of like Splinter Cell setup. It's you violently stabbing someone with a blade raking it across sideways, or downward thrusting, or smashing a hammer against their head. I mean, this is violence. So anyway, the violent part is censored out. It's kind of blurred over a little bit with little glimpses of what's happening. But during this cutscene, you're actually performing the motions with motion controls. So if you're stabbing someone, you're supposed to stab. If you're raking across them with a blade, you're doing that. If you're thrusting at them, you're doing that. If you're swinging something, so you get this blurred over effect, but you're actually doing the motions. It's really disturbing, and the censorship doesn't protect the player. But it's interesting, to say the least. And there is a little pop-up up on the screen telling you which way to move the controller, so it's not like the motion control is, you know, weird or annoying. It's real simple motions. It's, you know, shake it up, shake it down, stab it forward, or thrust down, or, you know, easy motions. But anyway, it's brutal, and the way that it's censored, it actually reminds me of the chainsaw scene in Scarface, how they had to censor that to get a rating to be able to put it to the theaters. You don't actually see anything except the blood splashing Tony Montana, and it's actually more gruesome that way. Your imagination gets the best of you. It makes it way worse than it is. So the graphics, not stand out or anyway, but there's some cool artistic things, and the censorship is very interesting. So non-issue there. It's definitely playable. How about the sound? The soundtrack does a great job at being ambient. It never pulls you out of the immersion. Again, it's not a soundtrack you jam out to on a Stairmaster, but yeah, that's expected for this game's genre. You know, it takes a back seat. It just kind of floats you through the game, because it's not a fast-paced game, you know. And speaking of ambient noises, there's all sorts of things filling up the speakers. NPCs having conversations off camera, on camera, weird flashbacks, creepy filler noises, kind of like, you know, squeaking doors, footsteps, that sort of stuff. It almost never stops. There's always something happening. Whether it's your own steps echoing, or, you know, whatever movie, there's always something happening, and the audio is really done well. No complaints here. It's one of the bigger driving forces of the game. When it does stop and there's no audio, it is creepy, because you're aware of it, but you don't really know why things got creepier. It's just, ugh. So kudos on the sound design with this game. Everything just works really well there. It really gets you going. That's probably one of the bigger drives here to keep you in the story. And the story is really well done. So I would, you know, really the whole thing is well done. But yeah, so the sound is good. No issues there. Controls. Well, this is a Wii game, so you would expect multiple controls. You're not getting that here. You get one set. That's it. The Wiimote and Nunchuck. Sorry about that, waggle haters. The good news is the motion's not gimmicky. Maybe a little, but the motion isn't intimidating at all. While melee attacking someone, an opponent, it's hard to say enemy, because I don't know that anyone is really your enemy in this game. It's very strange. So your opponents, when attacking your opponent, you punch with a Wiimote for your right hand, and you punch with a nunchuck for your left hand, kind of like boxing. It's really straightforward. You just, you know, easy motion. It's not frustrating, it's not confusing. Shake it and you hit the guy. So that's what you do during melee attack. Pretty easy. You also use the motion controls to mimic violent attacks with weapons during sneak attacks that we spoke about. Again, no concerns here. All simple controls. So the motion controls, no issues. The rest of the controls, simple, straightforward, work like they're supposed to. There's nothing complicated at all. Everything is easy to learn. Pick it right up. No problems. very intuitive, and they're responsive. So there's no sort of lag or anything there. That all being said, I've got a couple of nitpicks. Really, I've just got the one, and the second one's completely my fault. So the first, or the legitimate nitpick, I guess, you can strafe in this game, so that's not a bad thing. But it's not something you realize out of the box. You'd have to pause it, go and view the control settings to really figure it out, or accidentally happen upon them. When you're holding the Wiimote, really your fingers settle on the A button and the B button, your thumb and your index. You don't really reach up high naturally to utilize the directional pad. The down button on the directional isn't bad to grab, and that pushes you up against the wall to, if you want to look around it or something like that. But if you left and right on the directional, will actually get you to strafe. So the thumbstick on the nunchuck, left and right, is rotating, and down is backwards, up is forward, which is fine. That actually works really well. Strafing is just a little awkward to use. I haven't really found a real reason to use it yet. I mean, there is a reason, but it's not a great game-breaking mechanic. If it wasn't there, you wouldn't really worry about it. I only really noticed it because it was there, and I was like, oh, I don't like that. So yeah, that's my real nitpick. It's just annoying as all. Again, if there was no strafe function, I would have never even thought about it, but because there is, and it's a little awkward to reach, and you could get used to it. It's not horrible by any means. So that's my, again, nitpick. Not something that's wrong with it. It's just a nitpick. The other thing, again, totally on me. This is my fault. So I had already played the game briefly, real quick, just once before recording, mostly to make sure that it worked. You gotta make sure the game works. And when I was playing, when I played, there was no issues. It worked fine. Flawless controls. Beautiful thing. So then when I went to go play for the recording that you're watching here, and you'll notice this in the gameplay if you like to watch the gameplay in my videos here, the controls seem like they become unresponsive. My guy just kind of leans to the side and hangs out, waiting for his pizza to be delivered, whatever. I don't know. It felt to me like the game was freezing up. So I don't know if it was, I thought my controller was glitching, maybe it had a low battery, there was some kind of interference was happening. I don't know what was going on. I even reset the nunchuck at one point, taking it out and plugging it back in. You probably noticed that at one point during the gameplay. It'll say, hey, the nunchuck's unplugged. Stupid. That's my fault. Turns out it was my dog's fault for sitting on my lap. My lazy dog wanted to cuddle, sat on my lap, no problem, that's fine. And I had leaned the nunchuck over aggressively at an angle without realizing it. Because, the dog was on me and my arm was off to the side a little. I didn't think anything of it. Well, that's what caused my issue. See, what happens when you put the nunchuck at about a 90-degree angle, left or right, it'll make your character lean to that direction, left or right. Useful for peeking around corners, but when you lean, you can't really move much else. I mean, that's really it. You're just leaning, kind of locked in the position until you unlean or stand up straight. So while I was leaning, I didn't realize my controller was angled, and I thought the game was glitching. So, not really a nitpick. That's my bad. I probably would have realized it faster if it wasn't such an aggressive angle that was required to do the lean. But yeah, so that's my bad. So controls, no issues there, really. So overall, I was pretty excited to get my hands on this game for a few reasons. Generally, Nintendo has thought, again, not to have any M-rated titles, and I like collecting them, the M-rated titles. Kind of show friends, look, hey, no, adults play games on the Nintendos too. Some kind of weird validation, I guess. A lot of my friends, they're more PlayStation, Nintendo people. PlayStation, Xbox people. So yeah, some kind of weird validation among friends. I don't know. Also, this game in particular made a lot of noise on national news. Not since the times of the Sega CD, and I think it was a Night Trap have I seen this kind of coverage. And granted, it wasn't really as extensive as that, but there was still quite a few channels broadcasting, and I couldn't even believe it. You could find them on YouTube. They were actually showing clips of the game, like, "Oh, this game is so gross. Look what you can do in this game." It was like an advertisement. It was completely backwards of what they were trying to get done. So yeah, so there's a lot of, media coverage for this for some reason. I mean, I know why. It's a gross and disturbing game. So it's a cool piece to have in the collection just for conversation reason. It's not like something my wife would be like, "Hey, what is this about?" But among friends and other collectors. And then of course the game is actually a good game with an intriguing storyline. I haven't played very far yet, but so far it's done a fantastic job with the story and the ambiance. Is your character crazy? Well, I don't know. It may be, maybe not. Is the partner you're traveling with really there? Yeah, maybe not. I sort of feel like he's not, but I think that he is. Is this some kind of weird psychotic break your character's having? I don't know. Is it really happening? Hard to say sometimes. There's a couple things that happen in this game where you're like, I don't know. And then, I've just really enjoyed it. It's been a good game. And something that's kind of neat about this game, even being the style of game it is, the difficulty level makes the game very accessible for players that are new to this genre. Splinter Cell, for example, I wouldn't say it's a terribly difficult game, but there's certain levels that you have play over quite a few times to get past. This game, with the default setting, for an experienced user, I mean, you're just going to fly through it, but on the default setting, if you're new to this style of game, it's not a problem. You can still enjoy it without getting stuck in dying all the time or getting lost in a puzzle. So I would suggest selecting the harder difficulty if you're a seasoned player, and if you're not, then just enjoy the easier difficulty. So it's kind of nice to see. Sometimes harder games are just always harder, or I should say serious games, sometimes they're harder without an easier level selection. This makes up for it by having an easy and a hard. So yeah, it's a good game. It's fun to talk about. It's brutal and it's gory. So is it worth picking up? Not for everyone, I guess, but for a lot of people, yeah. So right now, the game averages a price point of about $8 complete or $5 loose. And it's a good game. It's well done. I'd say this is it's pretty much a no-brainer. I'm surprised. I'm really surprised this game doesn't have a higher price point, somewhere around the $20 mark. This game is worth much more than it sells for, and I'm not sure why it's set so low. And I'd expect to see this game increase in value going forward. It's not one you come across in the wild very often. It's a game that you really only see if you intend to buy it and you go online to buy it. It's not something people part with. I'm not sure if it was a rare game or if it was a smaller distribution on it, but I don't think I've ever seen one ever except when I came across this one and I bought it. So I don't know. It seems to be rare. I don't know if it really is. There was a lot of controversy surrounding its release. It just seems like the perfect kind of game that would be high value. So it's just odd to me that it's priced so low. So I would say grab it while you can. I mean, $5 to $7 is. I mean, why wouldn't you? Potential small investment. I don't know. Well, I guess time will tell. Anyway, going back, this game is not for everyone. It just isn't. As good as it is, it's just not going to be for everybody. No stranger to violent games, no stranger to gory games, to horror games. But even this game, I was pretty disturbed here and there. you know, there was times where I was like, did that just happen? Well, if you're watching the video, well, we're 20 minutes in, so you've seen the beginning scenes. Right off the beginning, you're getting peed on, you're getting poop thrown at you. There's guys spouting a geyser of blood from the sketch you walk over. You've seen some of the cutscenes where I've snuck up on people in the game. There's a guy you walk in who hangs himself and dies, and you just can kind of bounce him around like a yo-yo hanging loose. It's weird. So no, it's not for everyone, and it's disturbing. It absolutely is. So don't go into this game thinking, oh, it's just blood, that's why. No, it's mentally disturbing. So if you're strong-willed, I guess, and you're okay with handling these things, absolutely get the game. It's fantastic. The storyline more than makes up for the disturbing images. If you can't, don't go get this game. Just go get a copy of Splinter Cell instead. This game is possibly not for you, but it may be worth trying for the price point. It's cheap. $8 is cheap for a good game. So yeah, I say give it a shot, try it out. Don't be surprised if you can't handle it. It's messed up. It's a messed up game. So messed up. You may get nightmares. Don't let kids play this. That's it. Alright. So instead of getting a Happy Meal, go and buy yourself Manhunt 2. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Alright, have a good night, and thanks for watching, and happy interneting. Bye.